Okay, hello and welcome to our training webinar. We started doing these monthly in order to, just show anyone who wants to learn how to use the Onalytica platform. And we've previously hosted webinars that went through the Discover and Lists module. We also have done a webinar on our reporting feature, which is separate to dashboards that we will go through today. So today what we'll focus on is to build a dashboard, and we're going to do a share of voice, a brand share of voice dashboard as an example today. So we are recording this session, and if you would like the recording to be shared with you after the fact, please let us know. You can either reach out to your customer success manager separately, or you can write it in the chat box and we will make a note of that if you would like it. It doesn't send out automatically. So yeah. Before we get to this point, so currently we are in programs and dashboards. And before we start building our dashboard, what you will have to do is make sure that you have topics set up in your program, as well as also ensuring that the influencers or the people of interest that you have found in Discover, saved in lists, and then added into your program. And also that they are tagged in the way that you prefer. This can either be done by us here at Onalytica, of course, or if you do this yourself, and if you're unsure of any of those previous steps, please reach out to your customer success manager who will be able to help. So today we'll focus on the actual building of a dashboard. So let's get started. First, we need to click Add New Dashboard. We need to name it. So I'm just going to do brand share of voice. So SOV stands for share of voice. And then hit save. Once we've done that, we click into the dashboard. Of course, now it's empty because we haven't built it yet. In order to start doing this, we click Add Widget. Now, when you click Add Widget, we have all of the different options that we can choose from here. As we hover over them, you will see a little example of what it can look like, as well as a little explanation of what it is and when you could use it. What we're going to start with for this brand share of voice dashboard that I'm building today is a chart widget. And as I click into this, we see this. Now, it looks like there's a lot of things going on here, so I'll try my best to break it down. First, what we choose is our date range. So what do we want this chart, what date range do we want this chart to be? I'm going to do this dashboard on 90 days. As you can see, you can choose the last 7, 14, 30, 60, 90, last year, and also up to last 2 years. Now, all of these that you see here are rolling. So it will always be the last 7 days, no matter when you go in and look in your dashboard, for example. However, if you choose a custom range here and set your dates, it will be static. So it will not be rolling and updating as and when. It will then kind of be a snapshot of whatever time period you set here in the custom date range. So I'm going to choose the last 90 days. Now we can also choose the breakdown here if we want to do it day by day, week by week, month or quarter. So here I would suggest rather that if you take the year or the last 2 years to maybe only have the breakdown quarterly, or if you do it monthly. Reason why, so you don't have too many data points. It's just for the visual of the chart that I would say that. However, we're going to do the last 90 days and apply. And we're going to look at posts. And what I want to do here, so here we can choose the visuals, right? So we can choose trend lines and we can choose lines like this, or if we want to stack it, we can choose to have it on top as well. But now for this, I'm going to choose a pie chart just to lay out the percentage of the share of voice over the last 90 days. And then I'm just going to, this is in our demo account, our own demo account. So it's just set up for these type of purposes. So I'm going to choose 4 brands again, just because of the purpose of this training. So I'm choosing Nokia, Apple, Ericsson. I can choose Samsung. I'm in our 5G program here, so all of the topics are only centered around 5G. Now this will of course look, different in your own programs, so don't be hung up on that. And we can do it either on multiple topics. So what's the share of voice over across multiple topics, or if we just want to focus on one specific topic that we're interested in. I'm just going to do 5G in business for the purpose of this. Just choose one topic. Now, what we're doing here is we're looking at what the share of voice is in terms of people talking about 5G in business in association with these brands, right? So what that means is we're looking at who out of Apple, Ericsson, Samsung, and Nokia will have been mentioned the most in together with 5G and business keywords, right, across the last 90 days. Now, the next step we need to do, so these are all looking at topics. Now then, and the brands. So, sorry, the brands. The next thing we need to do is choose the topic. I did that on the wrong side, so we need to include topics. Display here is what will be displayed in the actual pie chart. And then what we want to include is the topic and then influencer tags. Now, this is why I mentioned previously, before you get to the point of building a dashboard, you need to make sure that you have tagged your influencers that you put into the program. And here we can choose, we're going to choose now external influencers. So how we normally set it up here, and if you have programs set up by us, you will probably also recognize these type of tags. We look at external influencers. So that would be anyone who's not employed by any of these brands and not a competitor to them either. So that's what we're looking at here. So we get a group of people who are not employed by any of these brands here, talking about 5G in business in association with those brands. Share a voice, 5G and business, last 90 days. Now this is just the name of the widget that so that it's clear what it's looking at. You can of course name it the way you want. As I save it, we see it appearing here at the top of the dashboard. We can resize it very easily if we want it larger. We can also, once we start building our dashboard out and we have more widget, we can easily just drag it around to place it somewhere else in the dashboard. Now, what I want to do, so what we're looking at here is just the share of voice across the last 90 days. I would also like to see a trend line. So what has it actually looked like over the last 90 days? Now, I'm going to go back again to charts. This time, however, I'm not going to choose a pie chart, but I'm going to use a trend line. So I'm going to keep it as is here. I'm just going to go in and choose the last 90 days. And then me personally, I like this more kind of stacked trend line. This is, of course, a personal preference, so you do as you choose. I just think it's a lot easier to see the different brands then compared. Again, I'm going to choose Apple, Ericsson, Samsung, and Nokia to keep it consistent. Again, I'm going to go into include and first choose the topic of 5G business. And then I'm going to go in and choose the influencer tag, and I'm going to choose the same one so that we keep it consistent and that we see essentially the same as we do in the pie chart I just built out, but over a trend. So share a voice trend line. 5G business last 90 days. Again, you can name your naming convention of these widget, you keep it as you choose. And then I'm just going to make it larger so that we can actually see over the trend line. Now we see, because I've kept it to days, it's very small here. If we want to change this, we can easily click the three dots at the top of the widget, click edit, and then we go in and I have it over the last 90 days and it's broken down by days. If I want to have a little bit less cluttered view, I can choose to update it to just have weekly breakpoints. And then I apply, I scroll down and I hit save, and then it updates. And it looks a little bit cleaner. So that makes it nicer to look at for me, at least. And then what I also want to let you know is almost all of our widgets are interactive. So when we hover over here, so for example, here we see clearly that Ericsson has the majority of the mentions over the last 90, the posts mentioning them in association with 5G in business over the last 90 days within this group of people, the external influencers that we chose. So what I can do is I can click here and it just pulls in the feed that actually creates that majority in the share of voice. So I can have a look at what is it that people are actually saying. I can then also choose to export this. If I want to review it outside of the Onalytica app, it will be as a CSV file or an Excel file, I think, just to make it easier to kind of review and if you want to analyze it outside in terms of the actual posts. You can do the same here. So every point here that you see, you're able to click and you will also be able to get that feed that creates that data point that you click on. Now, what I want to continue looking at, so now we have the share of voice just in terms of a percentage. We have it also as a trend line. So we see over the last 90 days, what has it actually been looking like? So here was a big spike, for example. Here we see that Samsung also had a few more than they did over the last overall on the last 90 days. So what I want to look at now is just the actual number. I want to see how many posts there has actually been rather than just a percentage or a trend line, right? So in order to get just a number like this, we call it influencer KPI. So what I'm doing here is, if I do it for Nokia as an example, Nokia mentions, and if we keep the same 5G as last 90 days, keep it to posts, is that what we're looking at both in the pie and the trend line. I want to have it for the last 90 days just to be consistent. Obviously, you can do it as you please, but just for the purpose of this. And we did external. So here we have the list of all the influencers, the way that they are tagged, so that groups them. And we can then just type and search to find them. It just makes it easier than having to find the list. And now 5G in business is on the top here, but we can do the same for topics. We can also type in. So if I start typing business, it filters it out. So that's the only one I can see. Now, with the numbers here, I can choose out of these different colors what I want the numbers to be in. So maybe for Nokia, I want blue as an example. I hit save, and then we see over the last 90 days, Nokia in association with 5G and business keywords in this group of external influencers has been mentioned 1,400 times. Now, if I want to do this over and over again to maybe have it for all those brands, so I want it for Apple and Ericsson and Samsung as well, rather than just going and creating the same widget and clicking through all those options again, I can click the three dots and I can easily copy this widget just to make it a little bit easier for me. So I'm just going to rename it. So instead of Nokia here, let's go with Ericsson this time. And then I click copy. Now first it just appears. We see the name is different. I just need to go in and change the data points. So that's all I need to do. So I just need to, the influencer is going to be the same because they are still the external ones. Just need to. Actually, where? So I don't want to keep this as blue because then it's confusing me. If it's going to be the same color. Oh, let's just refresh that. Even though I chose a different color, just need to refresh it. Yeah, for some weird reason my laptop is having a little funky afternoon by the looks of things. So then we have a different number here that we can look at, and then we can keep copying this and changing what we're looking at for the different brands. We can also do it if we want to have impressions as well. So if I'm going to do this, and then we can do impressions. And then again, we just go in and up at the top, the metric type, because it's still Ericsson brand that I want to look at. I can just keep as is, and I click impressions instead. See that we're still keeping 90 days and everything else the same. If I want, again, I can change the color, and then we hit save. I think my browser is just caching it, so it's the same color again. And then we can again copy this brand per brand if we want to. And it just makes it a little bit easier, I think. If we want to have a trend line for impressions, we can do, again, we can either go and build it again, or we can go and copy, because I'm going to do the same trend line. I'm just going to choose impressions rather than posts. So if I copy this and then make sure that it's clear that this one is impressions, we copy it, it automatically populates at the bottom of the dashboard. I need to go in and change it so that it's not posts, but we're looking at impressions. Everything else is going to stay the same. I want the same visualizing of the data. It's the same brands I'm looking at, the same topic I'm interested in, and it's the same influencer group, which was the external influencers. The title I already updated as I copied the widget, and then I just hit save. So now what we're looking at here is a brand share of voice dashboard. We're seeing the overall share of voice over the last 90 days, kind of the top. It's easy to see who has the biggest share of voice there. We're also looking at it, how it's been over the last 90 days. We know that we can click into any data point. We can get the feed straight from there, what's feeding into this. We can also export those feeds. We're looking at it more to get really clear how many mentions has there been, and here also impressions with a brand in association with that topic within that group of people that we chose. We're also here looking at the impressions rather than just the actual posts. If we want to compare impressions and engagements, we can easily just move this up. Sorry. Let's go. My laptop is a little bit slow today. There we go. And then we can have it closer. We can even move it to the side here. I would then want to move up the numbers a little bit closer. If my laptop will work with me. Doesn't seem like it is today. There we go, finally. We can make this smaller, just so that we can have the numbers fit a little bit nicer next to each other. And there we go. Just going to make that smaller as well. And then we can fill this in, obviously, with more numbers if we want. Another interesting thing that we can do as well is look at content share. Sometimes we add that in some brand awareness dashboards. So content shares, just naming the widget again, just so that it's clear. Can do it for. We can choose how many links to display. So what is content shares? So this will give us a list of pieces of content that has been shared that are including the keywords that we choose. So the topics that we choose. Now, if we want to keep this, we can choose up to rolling 90 days. We can also have it in a static time period, of course. Can do it over our key topics of choice. Now we're in the demo 5G, so all of the topics have to do with 5G. And then if we want to do external influencers. Now, what this is going to show us if we scroll down, so any new widget that you add to a dashboard will always by default be added to the very bottom or the end of the dashboard. Now here we will see any content. Oh, 5G. Sorry, I need to update that one. I can update that title later. But so anything that is being shared across the 5G topics, we will see, we can click and see what has actually been shared. So we can click and it just opens it up in a new tab. We can see the outlet, we can see how many shares in total and who it's been shared by. Now this is really interesting because here we can click in and we can see the people who have shared it. We can also choose to export this if we want. And potential views look at all the, like the audience of the people who have shared it. So in total, that's why we call it potential views. It could potentially be viewed by this many people. So that's quite interesting. Another thing that can be quite interesting is a word cloud, if you want to see that. There we go. Word cloud. Again, we're going to use the same group of people that we've done throughout all of the other widgets. So the external influencers. Now, just be aware that with this widget, we're just looking at this group of people. For this widget with the word cloud, we can't choose to layer it with a topic. So you will see a word cloud that has been used by this group of people over the last 90 days. Not filtered on 5G as the example is for this dashboard. So that can be good to use in a number of different use cases. For example, if you're looking at a group of people or an individual and just want to see what they're talking about, whilst maybe you're collaborating on a campaign, and see, because a word cloud, as I'm sure you're all familiar, the larger the word, the more time it has been used. So yeah, and I think that's mainly it that I would use for a brand share of voice dashboard, to give a high level understanding of what brand has been mentioned the most, what does that look like in a trend line. You can look at it on number of mentions, you can look at it with how many impressions over that time period, more as a number. You can look at the impressions or engagement, if that also is something you're interested in. You can do the same for engagement. Over time, you can look at content shares that has been shared around those topics of your interest. And I think this can give a good understanding of what's going on. Another thing that I would suggest is to also add text widgets. Now, this is literally what it sounds like. So it's just a space to add notes to your dashboard. I would suggest this if you are building a dashboard that you will share, like that you will show to someone else, because or if you're multiple people working in the same account, the same Onalytica account, you tell them, hey, look at this dashboard that I made, so that you can tell the story around and give some insights into what it is that you're looking at, just to help you tell that story with the charts. It's always very useful to break it down, especially if it's someone who might not be working on the same project or campaign as yourself. It's always good to give a little bit of context. So if you add this, you just add a title. You can do brand share of voice insights, for example, and then you're adding your additional context. So here we are looking at, you can of course have it formatted a little bit. It's quite, a basic little text widget. Now you hit save. Now this will appear, like I said, all widgets appear at the very bottom. If you want to then move it, you can, again, like any widget, you can resize it. You can drag and drop it to wherever you wish within your dashboard, where it fits in what it is that you're telling the story about. If you, like I showed you, you can export within the dashboard, within the widget. You can click on the data points and export. You can also export on the individual widgets. Now, you can also export the entire dashboard in a Excel file. That would be if you want to have this added into a larger spreadsheet you're working on, or if you want to take it outside of the platform and analyze it in a different way. Yeah. And that is how you can build, that is one way of building a brand share of voice dashboard. If you have any questions at all, please pop them into the chat box, in the chat box, and we will be happy to answer, or we will have your customer success manager follow up. Or you can also, of course, always reach out to your customer success manager at any point in time to ask any questions. And please do let us know in the chat box if you want this recording shared with you, because we don't have the possibility to just automatically share it. So we need to do that manually. But please just let us know and we will make sure to share it with you. And thank you so much for joining. And we are able to give you almost half an hour back in time on this Monday afternoon, at least where I am in London, morning if you're somewhere else. Thanks again so much for your time and have a nice rest of your day. Bye.